evening, everybody, and also to our East Coast family. Thanks for joining. So, my name is Ike Ukazu.
My name is Frederica DK.
And I'm Isha.
Yes, and we're all part of UIU Houston. I do public relations, so I do all the social media. And then,
My name is Frederica DK once again. I am one of the event coordinators for UIU Houston.
And I'm the community service officer for UIU Houston.
and today we're going to be talking about mental health in our community, and I think we're all excited to have this discussion because I think it's something that we don't talk about too much. And so today we're going to be, going through our different stories and also giving you guys tips, and we also want to get your questions a little bit as well. Anything you guys want to say? Yeah.
I feel like I'm a little bit nervous to talk about this.
Yeah.
Because it's a bit revealing
Mm-hmm.
to do it on Instagram Live.
Yeah.
Kind of
Yeah.
tough.
Yeah.
I would say definitely it's one of these areas where it's a bit touchy. It's not really a very comfortable topic, but we're here today to kind of open up that channels of communication. So hopefully we can kind of get some feedback and just have dialogue between you out there, our members and viewers, as well as us on the panel discussion.
I don't think it's actually been done before, at least, by our chapter and just talking about this kind of things. I know for me, I have my personal, stories with mental health and also my mom and stuff like that. But we're gonna get pretty raw in here. So we want to be vulnerable, so we can also allow you guys to be vulnerable as well. So if any questions or anything like that, feel free. And before we even get started, we want to say we're not experts on this.
At all.
Are you a doctor?
I am no doctor. No.
Dr. Kim, no?
No, not doctor,
No?
but I do work in the psychiatric world. So I have a little bit of insight.
Mm-hmm. And I work in the finance world, so I'm definitely not an expert.
And I'm in HR, so.
But I think it's going to be cool because what we want to do is we're going to try to discover this topic together with you all out there on the Instagram community, and just ask questions and basically just talk about it together until we kind of come up with. And at the very end, we're also going to have tips. So last week we started posting tips, and also I asked you guys in the community. You guys gave some really good feedback about what you guys do to keep your mental health in check. So we have people talk about exercising, praying, meditating, and we're all going to discuss that as a group here. So
Yeah.
Anything you want to add?
Me? Oh, well, Chinamso is going to be joining us too with Talk Niger in a few minutes, and just kind of discussing some things as well, because he has it's a nonprofit, Talk Niger, so he'll be talking about that a little bit more later on in the show.
And also look at our new shirts. These are $20 on eBay. No, we don't.
No, it's on eBay.
It should be though.
But yeah, you can buy. And can we talk about UIU Houston, who we are on?
Oh yeah, you want to take that?
Yeah.
So just talking about our
UIU Houston.
Our chapter.
Yeah.
Okay,
Chapter.
well, first
Relate.
off, I think UIU Houston chapter is one of the best chapters.
Yo,
The best.
Not to say that every other chapter is not the best. We
Y'all are
the best
amazing.
chapter.
we're a bit
Right.
biased.
But we are definitely centered around just really making everything more community, making our events a community, coming together as one to really just highlight the Igbo culture, not just the Igbo culture. Of course, we welcome anyone who's not the Igbo tribe. It's not like we're just gung-ho and not celebrating other cultures, but we're definitely an awesome chapter in general. So.
Yeah, and I think this year for the chapter, not to delve too deep into it, but I feel like a lot of us see each other a bit as family, like an extension of our family. Like my family lives in El Paso or Arizona, super, super far away from Houston. So the people in our chapter, all of our members are really super dope and just cool to be around. So you just want to be around them all the time. That's why we keep planning stuff, because we just want to hang out with you guys.
Yeah, basically. And we've had a lot of stuff happen this year. I think we've all been on the same page as far as the e-board and getting things done. Yesterday we had a picnic, so hi to everybody who came to the picnic.
Yeah.
And this girl did an amazing job with the picnic.
Seriously.
Definitely want to give a shout out. And I can't take all the credit. I definitely would love for
You can.
everyone. No. I don't like to do that. But in general, I think all hands on deck. It was a family affair. Everyone came together. We put on a wonderful event, and I think everyone really got something out of our event, not just coming and having a good time. It was an educational component, which we've never done before, which we celebrated the Yam Festival. We gave a prelude to our upcoming later events, which
Yeah.
you have to stay tuned for that,
Okay,
and
we'll
we
talk
will give
about
you
it
more
then.
details later about that later in the year.
Yeah.
So definitely, thank you once again to everyone.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, cool.
So that being said, we'll kind of get started with it and I guess talk about our stories. But okay, just mental health, I think essentially is something that we don't talk too much about in our community. And what exactly is mental health? So we can all kind of go around and talk about it. But for me, mental health is essentially, we always look at the external, I think, as far as, what kind of car you drive, what kind of, house, you have, your family, whatever. But I feel like we never take the chance to really check out what's going on under the hood in our minds. And so everything would be perfect on the outside, but we never take a chance to kind of look at what's going on the inside.
Yeah.
So that's what mental health is to me.
So for me, mental health, I feel that it deals with the inside, the internal, your brain, how you feel about yourself. How you feel about yourself definitely it shows on the outside. It's kind of like, for example, when you're not feeling good, you're sick, you're not acting like who you are. It shows on the outside with your facial expressions, your body language. It speaks more volumes. So for me, mental health encompasses just holistically your mental, your health, your emotional, your physical, and spiritual health. So that all that in one, helps to me bring the person more wholesome or give them some type of feeling of positive energy irradiating from that person. So that's how mental health, to me, I see it.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's kind of piggybacking off of what Fab said. I feel like if you break your arm, you go get it fixed. If you break your leg, you're going to get it fixed. If you have a headache, you'll take medicine for it. But if there's something like depression, you just kind of power through it. You wouldn't power through a broken bone. Like, you try and go get that kind of stuff fixed. But because there's such a stigma around it, like there's something wrong with you, people tend to ignore it, or not necessarily ignore it, but just wish it away. And in wishing it away, a lot of the time it gets worse.
Yeah.
So with mental health, it's an unseen broken arm in your brain. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and especially in our community, I feel like I grew up with my dad and my mom. My dad and my mom, whenever things would kind of go awry, and it would just be, go pray about it, or go to church, or just don't deal with it. And mental health encompasses a lot of things. So, I mean, for me, even as a guy, like being attracted to girls or whatever, and my dad just telling me not to do those sort of things, and these all the sort of things that go inside our mind, and we have to have a good way to kind of channel this stuff instead of just powering through it, because that causes so many issues.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Or suppressing those feelings and thoughts. When you suppress things, it sometimes builds up into a bigger cloud where you become living in a darker cloud than you want to. And so I think a lot of times in our culture, and I'll say the African home, a lot of times when you're showing emotions, they try to suppress your emotions, or, oh, don't do like this, don't act like this, don't say this,
People
go
will
to
say
God.
this, people will say, yeah.
Right. Instead of like actually sitting down and listening and talking to each other and actually understanding why someone thinks the way they do or why they do the things they do. There's always a rationale, reason behind it.
Yeah, I'm not on Instagram.
For sure.
I think we
Definitely.
have it on there.
Yeah, you want to be in there.
Yeah. And also, I think I'm also here to talk, from a male's perspective, and I think, also from being Nigerian male, Igbo male, but also being Nigerian and also just American male, there's a lot of stigma about how we can talk about emotions, and do we get a chance to be sad? Do we get a chance to cry? Do we get a chance to be depressed? And I'll be giving my perspective about that as well. But also, Chinomsa, the founder of Talk Naija, which you'll hear in a little bit, he's going to give his testimony and how he went through things.
Okay.
And just him as a man, kind of breaking barriers for what it means to talk about, being honest about who we are. And I really, really hope that we can have this dialogue more. And if you guys see us on the street or whatever, say hi and talk about it.
Please.
Yeah. So I don't want this dialogue to end here.
So that being said, let's go ahead and dive in with our stories here on our panel.
You go first.
And this is the part where I was a little bit nervous to kind of be a little bit vulnerable. So we're going to each just kind of share our stories and our experiences with mental health in hopes that we can start the conversation and decrease the stigma. So You want to start?
You said you were going to
No,
start.
I said we were going to start.
No.
So I did the introduction, so I didn't have to start. So you can
I
go
heard
ahead.
something
Or Fab, you
different.
can go. Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know.
All right.
I'm just saying. I thought you were going to. Okay.
hey, you can go. You're already talking, so just go ahead and jump
God.
in.
Okay, whatever,
So it
guys.
doesn't really
All right,
matter.
cool. All right, so I'll try to keep it short. Just keep me to it so I'm not
Got
talking
it.
about a whole life story.
Right.
So, grew up here. I was born and raised in Houston, Texas. For me, I was kind of a wild child as a kid, and what gave me my focus was learning how to play music. I learned how to play music at the age 14, and for me, that was like what I wanted to be. I actually became a Marine Corps musician, still playing music and everything. So just everywhere I'd be, playing on drums and doing whatever. And actually, I believed at a certain time that's what God put me on this earth to do. So it's very much a passion for me. Whenever I play music, like I get super happy. She's also a musician, so she knows what I'm talking about. But even with dance, like
Oh, yeah.
you're
Dance, I
happy.
play the instrument too.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know.
I don't know.
I play the
What do you
piano.
Do you really?
Can we
Yeah.
have a jazz?
Wait,
session?
Piano
Have a
and the
band?
clarinet.
Wait,
I
hold
got
on.
drums. Okay, cool.
That's the instrument I need to learn.
Yeah.
The percussion. But I can read it.
Yeah. So anyway, just music has always been a big passion for me. And around 2010, 2009, went to Afghanistan, started having symptoms of carpal tunnel syndrome, which you don't know what that is. It's essentially your hands kind of locking up on you. And eventually I lost the ability to play music. It was a very difficult time in my life, and I was, praying about it. I was going to church, and people would always tell me, hey, just have faith. God is going to heal you. But it got really, really bad, even to the point where, like, it got so painful. What me writing my name was like a second grader writing a name, and it just looked very horrible handwriting. My handwriting is not good, regardless, but just looked a lot worse during that time. I remember, calling my sister and saying, hey, I can't do this anymore, and also, crying to my teacher and saying, this is something I really love to do. Why can't I do it? And also, like, asking God, like, this is something I thought you put me on this earth to do. Why are you not letting me do this? And just going to church and just, praying about it or whatever. And, again, people would tell me just have faith, pray through it. But I think I went so far down that path, I just started praying more and more and more to the point where I wasn't getting sleep, and I wasn't taking care of myself, and I wasn't checking in with things, and I wasn't seeing anybody, for help and guidance, and I was kind of internalizing it. And it's about to get super personal. So I remember just, being up late nights, and, it would be just about me, God, hey, heal me, change, give me my gift back, but also, like, fix my parents' marriage, help them get back together. God, you can do. And I just remember, like, seeing just really crazy things in my mind, and also just like kind of feeling like I was kind of just talking to God, but it was just completely just whacked out. But it got really bad to the point where I got checked into a hospital. Wow, I'm going here. All right, cool. We're here. And I eventually got diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and also with schizophrenia, which I believe was a misdiagnosis because I'm talking to you guys normally, and I actually don't take any medication. So again, I'm not saying if you're taking medication, do what you have to do. But for me, this is my personal story. Yeah. Looking back in hindsight, I believe it was a mental breakdown because of the cause of stress, and also just to elaborate on that, my mother actually, she was schizophrenic, and I believe it was just because of not treating her symptoms early on. I feel like she could have been dealt with a lot better. So I think for me, somehow, going through that being diagnosed that way, and also just, I recovered over time. I started doing the right things, and let me know if I'm talking too much. Please
go
do.
ahead.
All right. So I remember, as I started kind of coming to my wits, and after that nervous breakdown, as I'll call it, not bipolar, whatever. I remember just not having the ability to have conversation. I think one of the biggest things I can do to converse with anybody is have a short-term memory and know what we're talking about. But I remember just having something. I couldn't even remember the last thing I said, and I couldn't build something.
Right.
And that was really hard too, because I've always been able to socialize with people.
Right.
But now I'm completely fine, and I think now what that's taught me is that mental health is just like being an alcoholic or whatever it is. Like if your parents have dealt with it, you can also be susceptible to going through those same sort of symptoms. So it was just really hard. And also for me, I realized that now I have to continue checking myself because I know that if I've gone down that path before, it's possible to happen again. But also to say that, you know, you can be misdiagnosed and you can be labeled as schizophrenic or whatever it is, but just you have to really just check in with yourself early. Know the signs earlier on. If you're not getting sleep, do something about it. If you're being sad about something, if you're being really angry all the time, know these things are not something you should be continually experiencing, and talk to somebody about it and get it dealt with. Because I know that you can really. My fear is that, you know, if I don't deal with this stuff in the future, that, you know, I could end up with my mom. My mom died 5 years ago from not dealing with those things. And I have this thing I say in my head, like either we face a war outside, meaning we deal with the stuff outside, or we face a war within and it destroys us. So I want to make sure that we're constantly just healing ourselves and knowing the proper channels to do so.
Yeah. Should we? Do you want to, before we continue on, do you want to check the IG live comments? And
I don't know how to.
So
I think I need to log out of this. No, I got it. Actually, I got it.
You got it?
I got it. I got it. Yeah, I can see it. I got it. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm looking at myself.
Flip it and then just read the comments.
Okay. So if y'all have any comments, this is really cool. It's fried or roasted plantain. He's asking about fried. Oh, thanks for that, Nikita. Appreciate it. We've had some good conversations. Yeah. If you have any comments about that, please let me know. And this is something I don't think I've ever shared.
Yeah. No. Go ahead.
I've never really shared with.
To connect a person.
Oh, they want to connect. Okay.
Is that? Well, guys, we're gonna start connections with everybody.
I don't know this.
7.
What's his name?
Chinonso.
Okay, but we're starting. What time is it?
Okay.
We have a couple of minutes before we.
Okay.
Yeah. And just to let you know, in 10 minutes, we're gonna bring on Chinonso, the founder of Talk Naija. Right now, we're just kind of sharing the story. So, all right, I bit the bullet.
So I'll basically go into my story, or just kind of with me. I know growing up, I lived, I guess, in the perfect lifestyle, meaning that I had my dad, who was a pastor, mom, mother, who is the pastor's wife, and a lot of times my family was looked at as a role model family, or the family that people were to look at. But growing up, I know with my relationship with, especially my mom, we've never really had a close relationship. It's been kind of rocky. But I just remember a lot of times there was things that she said to me that affected me in my childhood and into, you know, as you get into middle school, high school, those prime areas where you're needing your parents and you're needing them to be there for you in your hardest moments or when you're going through challenging things. And I just remember, you know, certain things that she would say to me that really made me feel less of a person. But on the outside, I was always that person that would be the motivating person to other people, being able to be the voice of reason for even my siblings, because I had to grow up a little bit faster than most people in my time. So even now, sometimes in adulthood, it's still hard for me because of a lot of things she said to me has affected me, like mentally, like affects how I feel as a person or if I'm even good enough, you know. And there was a lot of times where I had, even for myself, periods of depression, periods of me feeling suicidal because I just felt like, you know what, I don't think I'm the best child. I don't think I'm living up to the standards of what they want me to be. So why don't I just, you know, leave this earth and maybe they will have peace of mind. Wow. So sometimes, you know, it hurts because our sticks and stones may break your bones, but words never hurt you. But in actuality, those things actually do hurt you. And I just know for me, growing up already in that type of household where people are just looking at you to be a certain status, be a certain goal, you know, African home, they're verbally abusive. I'm sorry, you just have to keep it 100. They're very verbally abusive, and when it comes time to listening and talking, they don't really take the time to listen and talk. And, that hurts your children because they still remember those things. And even now in adulthood, I still love and respect her. But, sometimes it just feels like a war zone. And it's just challenging. So I had to get to a point in my life where I had to take, control of who I am, saying to myself, speaking words of affirmation to myself, and, pushing myself to another level. And so I think that's helped me over the last couple of years to be much stronger in what I do, what I say, kind of also checks and balances for myself. I know sometimes I can drift off to the deep end and I can feel myself drift off in that deep end, but I try to bring myself back mentally and try to check myself and make sure that, my character's in check, who I am is in check. I know where I'm going. I set my goals for myself, irregardless of what family or past friends may feel and think. I still have to go for what's going to make Uchenna DK happy. So that's just a little bit of insight with my own personal story when it comes to just being mentally healthy, being mentally, just mentally sane, day to day. And just thinking of positive things to push myself each day to be bigger and better and greater. So
that's so real. Yeah.
Let go.
All right, so I feel like up until this point, I've lived two different lives. The life where, you grow up and you're in your parents' house and you go to college and all of that. And then the next life was I was married, had a home, had a kid, had the whole thing. And then now single, living in the city, doing all this. It feels like three separate chapters of a very long book. And, the way that my marriage ended, it wasn't my choice, obviously. I would still be married if I could be. But, screw it, well, let's just get into it. Okay, so my ex-husband loved to cheat a lot. And so for the last 3 years of our marriage, he was just kind of out there. You know what I mean? And I didn't find out until I was 4 months pregnant. And at that point, you kind of soldier through and you try and fix it. And I am, in every sense of the word, a perfectionist. My life is in order from point A to point Z. And a lot of times that serves me well, but in this particular instance, it kind of made me go a little bit crazy because I felt as though he was doing that because I wasn't enough. So I needed to fix myself in every sense of the way, every sense of the word. Everything about me needed to change. The way that I talked, the way that I dressed, I had to lose weight, I had to change my hair. I was just trying to figure a way for him to stop doing what he was doing so that our family could get back together. And it drove me to a point where I no longer knew myself. It was 3 years of me just putting on different hats and trying to figure out what was going on and what would fix it. And then at the end of it, I was just like, who am I? Who am I supposed to be anymore? I don't even know this person. I didn't know how to be an adult, and be single, and be a grown-up. I didn't know how to balance a checkbook. I never had to. I went from my dad's house to my husband, and then now I'm single, raising a kid in the city, and I have no idea what I'm doing. So I had to learn how to become an adult. And the way that I did that was through prayer, yes, and my friends, who turned into family. At points like this, at times like that, when you're really, truly at your lowest, and you're depressed, and you're having mental breakdowns, and you can't, I literally had to pull over on the side of the road so many different times because I was just sobbing, I couldn't see. And when your friends are around and you're able to talk and have these conversations, very few people know these stories because you hold them tight because it makes you so vulnerable. It makes you it makes people look at you differently a little bit. So the people that love you, which are, your best friends, you tell them all of these things and they kind of take you through it. But really the thing that helped me the most was therapy. And I know a lot of, not even Nigerian people, not even Igbo people, a lot of black people, there's a stigma around therapy. You don't talk to people about your problems, you fix it in the house. I couldn't fix it. I tried everything and I couldn't fix it. So I had to talk to somebody and they essentially said, you know what, it's not you, it's a character flaw in him. And I was like, oh, okay, so then so how do I fix it? She's like, you don't. You don't fix it. He needs to grow and figure himself out and do all that. And I was like, okay, so how do I get him to do that? They're like, stop, you can't.
Let it
go.
Yeah, let it go. And so it took some time of me letting it go, but at a certain point, the way that it ended, I didn't even end it. Even after all of that, I was like, listen, I'm going to try for this family forever. I will never stop trying. But if you're going to keep doing what you're doing, you have to let me go. And he's like, all right. And that, at the time, I didn't even cry. I felt free. I was like, oh, that wasn't what I was expecting to hear, but listen, it all worked out. And now, 2.5 years later, I'm legitimately the happiest I've ever been. Like, I can't remember a time where I was just this happy and just didn't feel like a weight, like I was carrying the weight of another person's baggage on me.
Yeah.
And I've got my own baggage to carry. I can't carry somebody else's to that extent.
That's right.
So yeah, that's my story.
Ooh. Lord,
She's
we
sauce.
have.
Yo, we're good.
That gave me some chills.
Real. Thank you.
You're wonderful.
Thank you, girl.
You're welcome. Oh man.
Oh my gosh, we need hugs.
Yes. We all need
Man,
hugs.
they just, my heart.
Oh, I just want to process that.
Like, so 3 completely different stories.
Yeah.
But it all impacts you
Yeah.
similarly, like
Right.
almost to the point where it's debilitating, and you have to
Yeah.
find help. You have to talk to somebody. You have to get whatever you need to continue
Right.
going with life.
Right.
And I think a common thread between all our stories, we try to deal with it ourselves. to the point
Yeah,
where we
yeah.
like it's,
Yeah.
you can't do it.
You can't.
You
Yeah,
can't.
you can.
And so, I mean, we need each other, and this is also the beauty of UIU.
Yeah.
Used in the fact that we have a community. One of the things I just quickly talk about, like we've had one of our members who is a member of the month, Louis Agulu. Is that his name?
Louis Agulu.
Agulu.
It's not how to say it, but it's okay. We love you, Louis.
I can say that name, bro. I love you. Nah, but he made something so, like, if somebody needs help, whether it be moving out of their house, whatever, he'll get people together to go do
You
that.
help.
You
You
help.
help. We
They
have
deliver meals, like
every Monday.
seriously,
Do it
and that's
tomorrow.
just something completely outside of UIU Houston. It's just a group of people that want to help each other,
Right.
and it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Like, we truly are a family.
Exactly, and you just share the burden, so it's not just on
Yeah.
yourself. So you don't break under the pressure.
Right.
And I think that's the beauty of what we're talking
Right.
about. Ooh.
Man.
Are we ready for our homeboy?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're ready for our homeboy. Chinna, so he needs to come.
Hey.
Can we?
Uh,
Let me see if I can join. Or listen, Chino. So if you're on, can you please request to join? Because I don't know how to do it, and it's a lot.
The request.
oh yeah.
Is that him?
It could
Mhm.
maybe. You have to press it.
Sorry, I'm not gonna get up there.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah. See what it is.
Right
And then
there.
you can see. Yeah, that was him.
Okay.
And you have-
Vic says he loves to binge watch mental health. Listen, that's helpful because it's almost like an escape.
I'll get up there, obviously.
Can you do it?
No, I already requested him.
Yeah, you just have to come on. Hey,
Are we
Chinna, so-
connected?
Hey!
They used to
Right.
the woman.
Hell no.
What's up, man?
What's up, bro? Figure it out.
Hey, all right.
What's going on, man?
So we're gonna have to
Hold on,
like get
man.
real close and tight in here.
How you all doing?
We're good. How are you?
Good.
Doing well, doing well.
Good.
That was really powerful. I wasn't expecting y'all to go that deep, but I really,
Us either.
We didn't either, but-
yeah, really,
I like that emoji.
Yeah.
Pretty.
like
Right.
these, like words that Nigerians are not comfortable saying, like bipolar, schizophrenia, talking about I had to end the marriage, right? Because we're good at keeping up these appearances. So that I really want to commend you all for taking this bold step. This is what we need more of. So I appreciate that. So that was on plan. That just what you said just hit me. So I had to take some
Sorry.
to process that. But before we get started, I have to say this. I like to start with gratitude, and I really want to give a major shout out to UIU platform as a whole, and the UIU Houston chapter. Y'all been like family since day one. Just doing stuff for us without us even asking for it, surprising us with $1,000 check, giving us the platform to speak. And I kind of had to start with this because when I came down, when I was invited to talk at the banquet that they had, there was a lot of people there. Coming up in class, I hardly spoke in class, so it's funny how the stuff that you are afraid of, you end up doing at some point in your life. So I'm in front of all these people after spending the night in the emergency room before I got to prison. Another long story. But after giving that presentation, I saw Ike, and this was in passing. I remember vividly what he said to me. He said he had on all white. He said, "Yo, bro," I thought it was like some type of angel or something.
Wow.
He had on all white. He was like, "Yo."
Real official. He does.
Yeah. But it was in passing. He said, "Yo, bro, don't worry. I'll formally introduce myself. Give me 1 second, no." But then he said, "Bro, like I really appreciate that conversation." Then he said, because my mom has this diagnosis, schizophrenia. He just kind of walked off like moonwalked out of there, and then I thought it was a dream or something. So it's funny that we're like reconnected back here. So I just wanted to get that story out there and thank this chapter for all you guys are doing for, even beyond Igbo people, just people as a whole. So let me do introduction before they start shouting and killing. I'll do a brief Igbo introduction, then I'll speak small English. So I'm Chinam Sochukwu Emeka Nwachukwu. But so my name is Chinamso Nwachukwu. I am one of the founders of Talk Niger, and at Talk Niger, what we try to do is to humanize the experience of those Nigerians who are struggling with mental health conditions, and provide resources for their families. And the whole point is to normalize conversations around mental health and, encourage people to, seek treatment. There's no shame in just being human, because I think all these struggles are just part of the human experience. Just because you have it or don't have it doesn't make you less than a human. It just means that, your map of the world is just slightly different. And I think over the years, Nigerians, Black people as a whole, have neglected their mental health. And this is a true story. Like I have a Caucasian roommate. I'm trying to do something different, right? And they have a dog, and the dog has a therapist. Yeah. And the dog it was a rescued dog from a meat farm. The dog has a therapist, and the dog is on antidepressant. So we've been roommates for a year, and I've watched even how the dog has improved from running when he sees me to interacting more. So I say that to say, if we can do that for a dog, why should we be afraid to, get the help that we need?
Absolutely.
For ourselves? So a bit of a personal story about me and how Talk Niger came about. So it started in Nigeria, like I came here in 97, and I remember where we lived in Nigeria, the village, we had a lady who was next door to us, and looking back, she must have had some type of psychotic breakdown. But what happened is that, she just gone mad. Yeah. And not, she would, I just watched how a mother was just, chained to a tree. They'll bring her out during the daytime. At nighttime, they had her locked up in this place. So as a kid, that kind of stuck with me. So it wasn't until I went up to, so we came here in 97. I don't know how your Nigerian parents do stuff, but my parents are very secretive. So I had no idea we were coming to the U.S. They said, "Oh, we're going to Lagos next year." I'm in D.C., right, at 11. So, like, just imagine being disconnected from what you know. So go from a place of you're seeing faces that look like you to then end up in a place like you're one of the only Black faces, right? And, the bullying and all the stuff that ensued from that. So when I went up to grad school in 2009, within my first couple of weeks there, like I had a flashback to my first couple years in the U.S. and it felt like, I'm like, man, so I've been holding all this stuff in all these years, and now it just kind of like came out, right? Because whatever you repress is going to resurface at some point, right? It doesn't go away. It it just stays there. You just keep like nurturing it, right? So after that experience, I left. I took a leave of absence for a year from school, um, and I started seeing a therapist. But the interesting thing about seeing a therapist was that I made sure I found a person that was at least 2 hours away from where my parents lived, just for the fear of people finding out. So I would leave work and like say, Daddy, Mommy, I'm working long shift. So I'll drive 2 hours to go see this guy. Then I come back. So I did this for a couple of months, and until after a while, then the African voice kicked in. So like, what are you doing here? Like you don't need this. Like, this is not what we do. So I stopped going. Again, then sometimes life will put you in positions for when you're trying to avoid what you need. So repress those emotions again. Then 2013, 2012, I moved to DC, and the same situation happened again, right? And at this point, this was like the lowest point, like right now I have this Igbo man stomach, and that wasn't the case then. Like I was so skinny, like all this stuff just kind of went away. Just because, I was so depressed, I couldn't get out of bed. For at least 2 weeks, my meals were a protein shake in the morning and a Gatorade. That was it. If I can do that, that was a successful day. So that was going on for a while. Then, you do therapy here, then you get better, then you forget stuff, then you move on. So, but it wasn't until, I came out here and I started dealing with someone, and I'm like, okay, we're into each other. We're Nigerians, we're of married age, so why not be open, right? So we're open. I talked to her about what I was going through. She was like, hey, why don't you just go see a psychiatrist? Like, you've tried everything else, right? And so I credit her with that decision and helping me make that decision. So I started seeing a psychiatrist. Then that's when I always knew something wasn't right since I left Nigeria, but this was the first time I was like medically diagnosed, and the diagnosis was depression and generalized anxiety disorder. I was like, wow. So the doctor said, here's your options. You can continue with traditional talk psychotherapy, or you can, try these antidepressants. So thought about it for a week. I'm like, well, I've tried everything else. Why not give this a try? So I got the pills, and it was a very, no pun intended, like a very tough pill to swallow, because you're thinking like, wow, like this is my whole existence. Like, because I'm taking this, then what is this saying about me, right? Does this mean that I'm no longer man enough, or I'm not the strong, evil person I'm supposed to be, blah, blah, blah. So I started taking it, and I'll be clear, like sometimes the issue with medication as it relates to mental health is you just never know, right? It may or may not work for you. So what worked for this person may not work for this person. So you may have to like try multiple medications before you get the right one, because it's still a new field and things are still trying to be figured out. So I got on it, started taking it, like, Flavor said, doctor's prescription 3 times in a day. So I took 3 pills every morning. Okay, I started noticing the anxiety part was kind of taken care of. Like, the anxiety was kind of reduced, but the depression part was lessened, but it was still there, right? I still had to continue doing what I was doing. So all that was going on, and mind you, and at this point, my parents did not know. My best friends did not know. Anyone in my circle, no one in my circle knew except this person I was dealing with. So to kind of fast forward, then how Talk Niger came about was that, we're doing this whole Igbo love story thing. We're dating, things are going well. Then, of course, you encounter, obstacles in a relationship. And remember vividly, I was home. Full disclosure, as well. My older sister has a diagnosis of PTSD, bipolar, and anorexia due to some sexual assault in her younger days, right? Which is very common in Nigeria. Another topic. So she called me at this point when she's at some point she'll get very suicidal. So it's nerve-wracking because she can't sleep. I can't sleep. So she's calling, texting. So I'm dealing with that. So I was home that weekend, and I messaged this person I was dealing with, saying, hey, here's what I'm dealing with. I just don't know, right? She was like, well, I don't understand how people can be depressed. I'm like, okay, it's a state. It's not uncommon because it's hard to explain, right? Sometimes it's hard to put into words. So I'm like, okay, I kind of just pushed that aside. Then it got better. She said, well, she said, I think you enjoy being depressed, right? You're not doing enough to not feel depressed, because I have felt depressed before and I just snapped out of it, right? But we have to understand there's a difference between
absolutely
I'm just trying to make the less of your
being sad and being depressed. Those are it's way different. So after that incident, of course, the relationship just naturally fell apart. But from that situation, is at least what has worked for me over the years is it's okay, how can I make sure that what I experience, no one else experiences it? Because I was fortunate to have the tools to cope, right? But I know that comment is enough to push someone over the edge.
Yes.
Because one of my fraternity brothers took his life in 2013, right? At the age of 22, right? So when I thought about all those situations, then I went to sleep one day. I'm like, well, how can we shed light onto this? I said, well, Nigerians, we like telling stories, right? Very loud. We're very social people. So I'm like, let's do something where we can talk about it's just mental health, as just like we're talking about the newest dance move that's out there. Let's have these normal conversations. So that's when the idea came about. And what we've tried to do is create a space where people can share their story. And as what you guys can notice that's unique about what we do is, like, yes, I do get a lot of requests from people who would like to share their stories anonymously, right? If we can share that story, that's fine. But we want to put a face to mental health, right? There's nothing to be ashamed about, right?
Yeah.
Having depression and anxiety is just a layer of who I am, right? It's not all there is to me. So I think the more we have these conversations, the more we're able to humanize this whole experience, and we can then lead a mentally healthier life. So you guys won't even believe what you just did right now, just talking, being open about what you're dealing with, and how many other people can take that first bold step and say, hey, I need this assistance. So I figured for me to do this, I have to be fully open and vulnerable. So I decided to share my story, and more so because about this whole notion of there's perception is not always reality. Like what you see on social media.
Absolutely.
We have to touch on that, man. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
On social media, I drive a foreign car. Right. But it's foreign, but there are tiers to foreign. It could be Toyota or Lexus. Right? It's just a different letter, right? So we don't. So what we see is not what's really going on. So my goal in sharing that story is hey, you can see, I'm so laughing and shouting, but y'all don't know what happens when it's just me, right? Right. When I'm the only one. It's scary to be by yourself sometimes, right? Yeah. So you're just kind of stuck in there. So that's what we've tried to do over the years, and with the likes of UIU and just Nigerians in general have kind of bought into it. Just from that point, you get messages saying, bro, I've been feeling like this for some time. What can I do? So people have started, seeking help in private, which is the bottom line. It's not, we're not here to make money. if we don't even have like stories to share, that's fine. As long as you're getting the help that you need, then
Yeah.
you know, I'm satisfied. So I think I've spoken enough English.
Well, we certainly appreciate everything, like your story and a platform for Talk Niger for those that are paying attention and listening.
Absolutely.
So before you go,
I'm here.
Talk
I'm
Niger.
I have questions for
I have unlimited minutes. I'm available.
Okay. I know with TalkNiger.org, I know you have other people that are on the board, on the site. I believe, I don't know, I don't want to call their names out, but I know some of them have been in UIU. They're actually licensed psychiatrists and therapists.
Right.
So if anyone is out there who's viewing this live and would definitely want to visit your site or, seek some type of assistance or help, would those licensed individuals be able to assist them, or
Right.
how does it work?
Sure. So what we do is we don't provide direct services because of a lot of like legal and liability situation.
Right.
So what we do have is a directory of Nigerian mental health professionals. So we have over 350, mostly in the US and some in the UK. And if you're in Nigeria, and the goal is, at least for some people, I have a background in social works, and I just studied some therapy in undergrad. So for some people, at least populations, the vulnerable population, who like the whole notion of mental health is not the norm for them, sometimes it's helpful to have a friendly face as you're entering this realm of seeking therapy. So I always tell people, hey, finding a therapist is like dating, right? Some people like higher by price. Some people will go to some discounted areas, right? So what we try to do is not to provide services per se, but connect you to resources, right? Okay. And we're just trying to get you to the point where you can get whatever help that works for you. And while we're on this topic, I just want to add this, that I know that Nigerians are very spiritual people, right? Some people have come to me and I'm saying, I want to see someone, but I'm afraid that, if I go to this person, they'll probably tell me that I can't be a Christian or whatever no more. That's not how therapy works, right? Therapy is really to take whatever the strengths that you have in your life and have that work for you. So there's at least a list of like Christian counselors, if that's something that you're interested with, right? Then you have other types of people that provide those services. So I mean, as Nigerians, you can see someone and still not lose your spiritual background, right? It doesn't take away from that experience.
Awesome. There's a question in the chat on how do you get involved with Talk Niger, either as, I'm going to say a patient, but as somebody that needs help and somebody that maybe wants to utilize their skills, their credentials to help others.
Right. Absolutely. So there are multiple ways to get involved. So one of the items that we have hot topics where people have submitted like written pieces, around different types of topics. One year we had something for like a back to school mental health first aid kit. You can submit articles, or just you can enter into my DM professionally. We can talk in there. Just slide. Don't be out the page. But that's one way. Just the articles. Then this is a passion project, so we're always looking for people who want to join and assist however they want to. So we can definitely have a longer discussion. If I know what your interest is, then we can determine how best to utilize your skill sets.
I do have a question before. We have about 7 minutes, I guess, before we start opening up. But I remember first seeing you at the gala 2 years ago, and I remember that conversation we had where I kind of walked away after I told you I was
Right.
But just thinking that, you were doing something really big and breaking barriers, for an Igbo man to get up and talk about being depressed. So I just want to ask you, what were some of the challenges you went through mentally as far as, getting to the point where you can talk about your story openly?
This is gonna and because we're very superstitious people, this is gonna sound weird, but the death of my friend, my fraternity brother. I'm in a cult, guys. So the death of my fraternity brother, like, had a profound impact on me, right? So he was my birthday is June 2nd, right? On June 2nd, he sent me a message like, basically, happy birthday, bro, right? June 9th, he hung himself, right?
Wow.
So then you kind of like, man, 20, like, he's 22, like, about to finish law school, like, life was good, like, what's the problem? So from that point on, that's when the first time it hit me that, yo, I can die any day. Like, this could be it. So I kind of started seeing life through the lens of dying. So when I do that, then nothing really matters, right?
Yeah.
Like, if I die today, like, okay, maybe you guys you hashtag me for a good week, and that's it, right? For example, when Nipsey passed, like, that whole week, right? It was a lot of outpouring of support, but now everything has died down. So when I started looking at life through the lens of death, I'm like, I have nothing to lose in that sense, right? So so what I have to do is, like, then live this life fully, and for me to live fully is to be fully authentic and 100%, right? Because at the end of the day, you die alone, right? And all this stuff doesn't really matter. So once I was able to have that conversation with myself, that through, like, deep reflection and trying to discover what my triggers are, right? And over the years, I've learned is around the fear of losing something, mostly somebody, like a relationship. My first stint, and when it first hit me, my dad was diagnosed with cancer, so I thought he was going to pass, right? Boom, I came back home. Then he's doing better, and he recovered from that, right? The next time I had that situation, he had another diagnosis, right? And the relationship I was in just ended the same week, right? So it's just like,
Goodness.
right. So when you're, like, attached to the external stuff, like, okay, you're not really investing in yourself. You're just focused too much on the things outside your control, right? Then you're moved by that. But when you're, like, more grounded inside, okay, like, how is this best for me? And you kind of, it doesn't really become a challenge. The challenge then becomes is, like, how can you be in this? Like, sometimes I wonder, am I being too honest, right? So then that's the new challenge. But in terms of getting to the next level of having the conversation, the challenge for me was more so, like, the Nigerian aspect. I was thinking about how people were going to perceive my family, right? Not so much me, right? That's Dr. Nwachukwu's son. Oh my, that family, that crazy family.
Yeah,
So
that's how they talk.
Yeah.
Right. So that was the concern. But what I did is, I wouldn't advise doing this, but before I launched the website, I made up my mind, like, this is what I'm going to do. There's no turning back. So I told my parents, my siblings, all my friends, literally within 15 minutes of hitting launching the website, right? I didn't want to be talked out of it. Yeah, it was okay. Like, this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Launch. Hey guys, just you may see this
Just
here.
let me
This
know.
is what it's about. So yeah, but I was also scared. Like, I'm like, man, I'm putting a lot out there, right? Because what happens sometimes is, because sometimes we're not accountable with ourselves, we then try to shift blame, right? So if I have a disagreement with Ike, right, instead of it being like, yo, we had a disagreement, he said something I didn't like, it just turns into, that boy, he's depressed now, so he's crazy, right? So sometimes it kind of gets people off the hook to not be accountable. So that's something I worried about at first, right? But then you get to the point is, like, those are all outside my control, right? All I can really focus in is me, right? Is this? So I ask myself a question every 3 times something happens, like, okay, this just happened. I have 3 options. I can do something about it, accept it, or leave it alone. And I just keep it pushing.
Wow.
T.
Indeed.
I don't know. You said a lot of.
But, if this isn't like a lot, when we have lives sometimes, the conversation it bounces back and forth, and there's a lot of pepper in that. But I feel like it takes a minute to soak in what you said because it's heavy and it's a lot. And so excuse our pregnant pause, but it's just like it's a lot to take in. And I'm hoping that those that are on the live can genuinely appreciate that Chinonso is coming from a place of not only experience, but with himself, but with others around him, and being able to be an extension and help others in our community is huge. Because a lot of the comments that I'm reading, and by the way, Aiku Kazu we are Aiku Kazu. So whenever we respond, that's him. Yeah.
Right
so
now we are.
Right now today we are.
I had no idea.
So in the Niger community, having this resource is so huge. Had I known that we had this, I feel like I could have saved myself a couple of years of just spinning in circles. So Thank you for everything that you've done. Really, we really do appreciate it.
I appreciate you.
Thank you, Chinonso. You already know.
Yeah. Hope to see you at the gala in October.
October, I'll be there.
Are you coming to nationals?
Why not?
He's there. If it's you, Chinonso is there.
I do it for the culture.
Yeah, that's right. All right, we appreciate you so much. So the live is about to cut off in an hour, or not an hour, like in a couple of minutes because it's been an hour. But we want you guys to come back, and we're going to open the floor up to everybody that's watching. It's about to cut me off here soon, but we want to open the floor back up to everybody that's watching. There's been a lot of good comments, and we'd like to talk to you guys about it. So give us 2 minutes. We're going to cut off, then we're going to come right back on. Don't move too far.
We'll see you guys in a bit.
All right.
Oh, I'm doing it?
Good.
Good. X. And.
And